Hello guys and welcome to this second video. Well, as I mentioned before, this is a structure for argumentation in which we are going to focus on. This is really complete, and as you will see, it has a lot of components. The idea of such components is that we can have enough preparation so our arguments are really solid, right? Um, think about a lot of different, let's say, variables in the situation that we're discussing, so our position can be maintained at all costs, right? Well, this doesn't guarantee that, again, we're going to persuade all the time to the other person, or that our arguments are going to be 100% valid, but at least it's going to provide more possibilities of having a good performance and having elements to defend our position, right? So as you can see, this was somehow proposed by Van Dyck, and it is a complex source of argumentation. As usual with these diagrams or schematics, the idea is that these do not have like a lot of text. That is why it's graphic. So normally what we are going to put over there are single sentences. Sometimes they may be sort of incomplete sentences in the sense that they don't need to have the traditional structure of noun, verb, and complement. Sometimes we can have only noun and verb, verb and complement, and things like that. Or if possible, we can put just words, right, and put dashes or vignettes and write these different words over there. So let's say that these are an instrument to synthesize the ideas, right? Remember that probably you are going to have this in a, let's say, in a real debate. You're going to have it in your notes, and you're not going to have the time to read the whole thing and read the whole paragraph while the other person is somehow attacking your arguments, right? So you are going to have only this framework of reference in order to support your discourse, right, while you're speaking. So let's talk about something over here, right, and let's start talking about each of the labels that we have in there, and let's discuss something polemic, right? Remember that that is one of the important elements of an argument. It must admit the possibilities of a lot of perspectives, something that is sort of polemic, something that everybody have a different perspective about. Sometimes they agree, most of the times they disagree, and things like that. Okay, so in the part where again we're in slide number 106. In the part that says argumentation, you are going to put your premise. Yes, you are going to write over there the sentence that describes the position that you are sustaining. Yes, so in the previous let's say part, we were talking about abortion should be legal, so we're going to write something like this. Yes, so let's discuss about these very unfortunate situations that we have had lately with the trucks or the cars that have suffered accidents, and how people have sacked them, right? They have vandalized them and robbed things and steal things from them, right? So some people agree about that. Some people say those guys really have been abandoned by the government. They don't have any other choice, and that is incorrect but acceptable somehow. Yes, so you cannot judge them because of that, and that will be a position. Another position will be no, really, like poverty, necessities, and all these different things does not do not excuse the commission of crimes, right? Like they start committing crimes, so no matter how poor they are, no matter how abandoned they are, there's always some other options, and they should not be sacked or vandalized or robbed or things like that. There are some other positions, right, that are a little bit more intermediate. Like they will say, okay, people with the gasoline thing, yes, these unfortunate deaths and horrible ones that they suffered. Well, that is more or less justified because they're really living in a faraway town that it's full of contamination, lack of opportunities, they don't have basic services. So, for example, in that case, they are justified. But the guys that, for example, robbed this truck with the beer, with alcoholic drinks, well, in that case, that is not admittable, right? It's something that you cannot really compare. One is, let's say, acceptable, and the other one is completely condemnable, right? So I have somehow presented you like with three different perspectives or positions. One, it is somehow always right. The other is somehow always wrong, and the intermediate position that it really depends, right? So that will be it, the argumentation part. And let's say that you may decide what will be your position, or if you have another position, that's fine, right? So basically that's it. That should be, in this case, it should be a complete sentence, right? Because it must be clear enough what you're trying to promote, or what is the position that you are assuming in this case, okay? Now, we have the justification. Please close attention over here, because many people confuse justification with starting like giving the arguments, and that is not the case, okay? So please do not confuse it with that. It is not that you have to start putting the list over here. No, it is, why is it relevant to talk about this? Yes, why is it relevant to talk about this? No matter if you agree, disagree, condemn, if you think that they should go to the church, if you think that they should go to jail, if you think that they should go to to be given aids by the government, no matter what you think, what is important over here is to justify why talking about this topic is important. Yes? So, for example, we can think about that it is important because after this unfortunate situation that started it all, we have seen different ones, such as the one with the truck with beer, such as the one with cheese that actually had like a different, let's say, situation in which people did not rob but they helped the person. The one with the fish, right? I don't know if you are aware of that one. That people also try to rob that. So let's say that one justification could be like, if we talk about this, we would know how to know or how to react or what to do in the eventuality of this happening again. It might be relevant, right? What is going to be our position if this continues happening? Apparently, this has happened like for a long time, and this is just this horrible accident that made people to talk about it, but it may happen more. No, so that's one thing. Why else? Sorry, is important to talk about it. Well, it is not an isolated thing, and it has to do with a lot of different factors, such as economy, such as job opportunities, such as let's say concentrated poverty, social issues, culture, a lot of different things, right? So it is not the isolated incident of robbing or not robbing, but something that really has like a lot of different connections, if we want to call it that way, social, economic, cultural, etc. Right? So I gave you like 2 reasons, but I'm sure that you can think about more, right? Like, why is it important to talk about this problem? Okay, very well. Hope that's clear. Let's go down. On the left, we will have the framework, right? And what is a framework? Well, think about a painting. We have the painting, the art in the middle, and then the framework, that is the wood or metal square or rectangle that limits the work, the art, right? So this is basically it. We're going to put some limits to the discussion. Yes, we are going to say, okay, we are going to think about the morality or the consequences that we are supposed to happen, or that are supposed to happen, sorry, to people who robs, or people who somehow provision from this sort of accidents, and we're going to locate it into a specific framework. Now, this framework can be of different nature, right? So we can say, for example, only on a region, right? So let's say that most of these things happen in the coast, so the framework would be the north coast of Colombia. That would be a framework, right? Another framework for discussion could be, for example, of time. Yes, so we're going to discuss all of these incidents, the last that has happened in the last week. Only those, not the ones that happened 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 10 years ago, or the ones that will happen tomorrow, but only the ones that happened during the last week. Yes, so that can be a framework of time. Yes. Then we can discuss, for example, only the ones that happened during, in poor zones, or zones that are very depressed and has a lot of economic needs, right? So in that case, we would have to discuss only the ones happening in the coast, because, for example, this one of the cheese, well, that is not really, I think that happened in Tolima somehow, or something really close. Don't remember right now, sorry. But let's say that that specific zone in which it would happen, probably they have needs and different things, but it's not like extreme poverty like in the other ones, right? So we can exclude one because it would be sort of unfair to compare it with the other ones, right? So basically you define a framework over there, maybe in terms of time, in terms of topics, in terms of geographical locations, etc., right? That's it, okay? So you just describe it or write it over there. Then we're going to write the circumstance, right? And the circumstance is something that happened that makes us talk about this topic in general, right? So the circumstance should be like specific, right? The topic is general, like what people, or how are we, sorry, no, I mentioned like a different way, I don't want to change it and then confuse you, okay? What I had said is robbing or sacking cargo after an accident is wrong, right, or depends, yes? So that is the general, and it can be adapted to a lot of different situations. Very general, that is in the argumentation. In this circumstance, we're going to talk about the specific situation that inspired us or made us talk about this topic. In this case, it's very easy, and it's the accident and the death of all these people and all the other wounded or injured that resulted in that. Simple enough, okay? Remember, in the future, well, any situation that is particular, something that happened, one person, one situation, one accident, well, whatever, right? The circumstance is specific, the argumentation is general, okay? Very well. Then we have the starting points. Sorry, there's a typo over there. It's ing, no ign. Sorry. Starting point. So that is basically when are we going to start talking about this? Let's say that we're going to try to find a source to this problem, right? So in this case, depending on your argumentation or on your position, the starting point must be different or can be different, right? So let's imagine that your argumentation is sacking trucks after an accident is wrong. Yes, something bad. You should not be doing that. So what would be the starting point to discuss or to determine, sorry, that this is a bad thing? Well, you can go to the Constitution and say that like sacking somehow the property of somebody else, yes, private property, is wrong, yes. Or you can go, for example, to something a little bit more moral, like the Bible, or a religious source of connotation that supports this idea, right? That you should not rob. That is a commandment, right? Or you can go to something that is not religious but has to do with education, such as in your house, they told you always that robbing and stealing was bad under no matter what circumstance, right? So that can be a starting point. Remember, a starting point that supports or that has to do with your argumentation. Yes? Now, let's imagine that your argumentation or your position is sucking or robbing or taking provision from an accident from a truck post accident is okay, is good, is acceptable somehow because of the condition of the people, right? So what will be the starting point? Again, it may deal with constitution, such as basic rights of human beings, such as feeding and being able to have let's say a life that has the minimum requirements for living, right? So if you need to do that, if you need to sack or to take private property, that is more important than the private property, right? So Constitution may tell you that. So that may be your starting point. Or your religion, for example, can be like, sure, the let's say that commandments for not robbing is there, but there are the complete appreciation of life as a gift from God. So you should emphasize that over all other things. And if the government and the opportunities are not there, let's say that you're taking that possibility, right? Or it can be also your education. Sure, in your house it told you that robbing was not good, but then preserving your life and preserving your family and being able to eat every single day is more important than that. Yes, so let's say that should be the priority and things like that, right? You can have like some other ones, such as insurance will pay for that. So the insurance of the truck, I think. Sorry. Well, it's not really a crime. Nothing is getting lost because anyways insurance is going to pay for that, and insurance never pays like for anything normally. Like we pay insurance every month, every year, and most of the times nothing happens, right? So if these ones something happen, well, make them pay. That is why I'm paying them for, right? And if some people can benefit from that, the better, right? So I know that it's a little tricky, this concept. I think that the starting point is probably the most difficult one to get, but hopefully you're able to get it with these concepts that I mentioned. And well, anyway, if you have any question about it or any other thing, just let me know. Well, the next part, that is the facts, is the most important part. Yes, and what is the facts? Well, the law of passage, the arguments that you have for it. Yes, so you are going to write over there in dashes, or you're going to use it with somehow with the full sentences or something like that. The facts or the reasons why you think that stealing is never correct, it's always wrong, or that sometimes it is, or whatever. Okay? So as you can see, most of the other ones are just frameworks or ideas that are going to help sustaining your position. So the most important over here is the facts, right? So that's the one. This is like the law of passage that we talk about in the simple and reserved, no? All the arguments that go over here. And well, finally we go with two things that are pretty similar. Yes, so I'm going to try to be as clear as possible with those. The first one is the legitimization. Okay, what is it? Anything that can support your ideas. Yes, So, for example, if in your fact says, in the facts that you presented in the previous part of the diagram, it says something like, people live in absolute poverty and they have no other choice. Yes? Let's imagine that that is one fact that justifies that sometimes it's acceptable to rob these different trucks, or let's say take advantage of these accidents. Well, if that is one of your facts, in your legitimization you should have a statistics about, for example, in that specific town or in that specific region, what is the level, for example, of unemployment, the income per capita, the I don't know, the installation of public services, right? Everything that may justify that. Yes. Otherwise, it would be only like an affirmation, but with no support, right? So you have to do that. The legitimizations are normally numbers, statistics, studies done by other people, books, articles, well, all these different things related to being able to somehow provide authority to your facts. Okay, so everything should go there. Most of the times, like having serious sources would be great. Yes, like a study of the government, study of a university, something like that. Okay, basically it. Okay, now reinforcement. What is the reinforcement? The reinforcement is basically the opinion of somebody else, or the position of somebody else that coincides, that is the same or more or less the same that you have. Yes, but this somebody else must have a certain authority, right? Let's imagine that you have a non-governmental organization that basically says the same that you say, or a very important author, a famous author that more or less coincides with what you say, that stealing is always wrong, or the stealing is sometimes acceptable, right? Basically, that's it. Yes. So if you compare it, you may get confused. You say, but it's not the same that legitimization. No, not really, because legitimization is basically statistics or information to justify some of your facts. Yes. For example, the one about poverty. Yes. So the legitimization is telling, yeah, that fact is true. Look, these percentages, everything about poverty. Let's say the one about public services. Yes, yeah, that's true. This is the installation or the coverage of public services. You see, specifically go to certain facts. And the reinforcement goes to your position. Yes, to your argumentation. Yes, it is somebody else that is saying, yes, like taking advantage of this accident sometimes is acceptable. So he's coinciding with your whole premise, right? Or sometimes it's not acceptable, or it's never acceptable, right? And as I mentioned before, this reinforcement is must be by somebody who's really important. It shouldn't be your mom saying, yes, she's fine because she's my daughter or he's my son. No. So this must be somebody with authority. Now, important to take this into account. It is not always easy. Well, actually, most of the times it's pretty difficult to find somebody who supports your ideas specifically as they are. Yes? So sometimes it may happen that you just look for a reinforcement and you can find it, and that's fine. Yes? So all of the different components of the structure are mandatory. You are supposed to have them all. Yes? Except the reinforcement. Yes? If you find the reinforcement, great. You're going to have a great supported argument. But if you can, well, okay, you try it. Right? It's important to have that one. And finally, the conclusion. What is the conclusion? Well, you can guess. The conclusion should be exactly the same as the argumentation, just like what happened in the previous ones. Okay. So, guys, the assignment for this week will be this. You are going to make up or create or think about any argument that requires to be supported. Yes, think about everything that you have to complete, no? Justification, framework, circumstance, starting point, all of it. So anything that you would like to argument, and you're going to make this structure of argumentation of that topic. Okay, so I have already presented two examples, the one of the aversion, now this in particular, the one of the sacking and stealing of these drugs. So think about something different, think about something else that calls your attention, that is current, well, whatever, but remember the characteristics. Now it should be polemic, should have like different points of view, well, different things over there. You can work in groups of up to 5 people to do this in order to work with that and complete it. Remember what I mentioned about trying to be concise, brief, and have all these different components. If you can do it with the same diagram, yes, like you use it, Photoshop, Paint, whatever, and complete it over there, it would be great. It would look beautiful, nice. But if that complicates, so you can simply, just write it in a Word file, argumentation, colon, and the information over there, right? You don't necessarily need to do it in that way. If anybody wants to do it by hand and take it a picture, that's great as well. I mean, do as much as you can on this. The most important is the content rather than the presentation, right? So I'm going to focus on that. Again, like visually, it may be a little bit more attractive, and let's say I can get the whole picture. But I know the limitations that you have somehow because of these virtual things. So do not worry if you cannot do it in that way. Okay. So thank you very much, guys. Hugs. See you around.